Hi and welcome back to the Chonky Stitches podcast for episode number 3. I'm Jen, I live in the northeast of England and you can find me on Instagram as ChonkyStitches_ or on Facebook or Ravelry as just Chonky Stitches. If you're a new subscriber, hello, it is wonderful to have you here and thank you for joining me on my crochet journey. So the weather in the UK here has certainly taken a turn. I'm slowly starting to bring out the big jumpers and the lighter knitwear and the warmer corduroy dungarees. It is that serious. It has certainly gotten a lot cooler here. Actually, last time I filmed a podcast, I was in a floral summery dress, and this time I'm wearing my cozy rainy day sweater from Emma Warren Design. So I think that says a lot. But you know what? For me, that's not a problem. I love all things cozy. I love all things autumn, the colours, the aesthetic, the coziness. Jack and I have been blackberry picking, we've been conker picking, we are doing everything to celebrate the pumpkin. Anyway, enough rambling about how much I love autumn because I could go on forever. I think it's time to get straight into some finished objects. Now, don't get too excited. There isn't a lot to show, / there's nothing to show, but there's actually a lot to show. I'll explain what I mean. The reason for this is that I have entered a little run of autumn craft fairs at the moment and I have been spending all of my spare time, and I really mean all of my spare time, making for those. So depending on how you look at things, I either have lots of things I could show or barely anything. In terms of things I've made for myself anyway. I just haven't really had the time, but that's okay. It's well worth it. But I thought rather than skip the whole section of finished objects, I'd actually just spend a little bit of time showing you some of the things I've been making for the fairs. On my last podcast, episode number 2, I did show you the pumpkins I make for the craft fairs and you all seem to really like those and seeing them and how I make them. So yes, I just thought I'd show you a few of the things that I make sort of all year round, things that I take to every craft fair. So yeah, here we go. Firstly, this is my absolute bestseller all year round, and that is my squiddies. I make them in 3 sizes, small, medium and chunky, of course, and they look roughly like this. Aren't they just cute? So that is a small squiddy. This is a medium sort of size for some comparison. And this is a chunkier squiddy. For the changes in size, there's absolutely no change in pattern. It just depends on weight of yarn and whichever hook size I use. This is my own design, although I have seen similar designs by other makers. And what's great about them is that on average they take about 20 minutes to make, including sewing and stuffing, which is just ideal when you are pushed for time and you're making for a craft fair and you're having to make and make on the days and you're trying to build up your stock. As well as that, they use the smallest amount of yarn, so that is good because it means I don't have to sell them for a lot. It is affordable for me and for the customer, which is just ideal. It also means that generally I make them from quite scrappy yarn, so it's also a great way of avoiding waste. I often just get a few bits of scrappy yarn together, something I think would look pretty good, and I hold them double or even triple, just depending on how big I want to make it. Not for this particular chunky one, but sometimes for the chunky size I'll hold together about 5 and then use say a 7-8mm hook and you end up with something like this. It makes it a little bit harder to get the safety eyes in, but it does work, and yeah, it's a great way to use up scrappy yarn. And yeah, they're just so cute. They go down really well with children, but they actually go really down well with adults too. They're great for gifts, and yeah, really, really popular. By far my bestseller. So secondly, this is another design that I make all year round because it can be used all year round, and that is my tote bag design. This is it. I can slide it on to show. In terms of the pattern for these, I basically make a start chain, increase to the size I want, and I just work in a spiral all the way up. And I prefer working in a spiral, a bit like amigurumi, than having a join at the end of every row. And another positive of that is that you can go straight into one side of the strap rather than having to do that separately and sew that in. So minimal sewing in of ends, which we all like. You do then have to start the other side separately, but that is okay because you've never had to do anything like that for the rest of the bag. It is literally made almost entirely from half double crochet stitches, which I know sounds like it might be a bit boring to make, but I actually just find it really therapeutic, really mindless. I think partly because it's generally either chunky yarn I use or Aran weight, so it does work up quickly. I think that's part of the reason I don't mind doing that, with a 5mm hook that is. And also because I use this gorgeous variegated yarn, and I think when you're working in the spiral it just sort of allows you to see the yarn work out and work up and see how the colours work, and I just find that really satisfying to do. So I think that's part of the reason you avoid getting bored. And this is the yarn I most commonly use. It is Rico Design Creative Meringue Chunky. They're 50g skeins, but they are really quite affordable, and it's a really nice wool acrylic blend, and it really is, I do think it's a really good texture. I'm afraid I can't remember the name of this colourway, but I'm sure you can find it if you search for the yarn. This is a totally different colourway, but the colours are just beautiful, and I've used so many of their colours and they work up so nicely. It really is just a joy to work with this yarn. It really is. And because of the material, the bag does stretch out a bit when you put things in, and the strap does, and it actually creates a really nice sort of slouchy boho look. I used to do a longer strap, so it was more of a crossbody style, but I found that generally people preferred a tote bag sort of length. But I don't mind doing custom orders for anybody who would prefer a longer strap. I'm always happy to do that sort of thing. So yes, what else? Oh yes. So this is a fairly new addition to the shop and to my craft fairs, and that is my dishcloths. There you go. My pattern is actually based on the exact same stitch as my rowan scarf and my blanket, which I've showed you in previous episodes. I just find that that particular stitch, I'm sure it has a real name, and I don't know it. I'm sure somebody could tell me. I just find that the stitch just makes a lovely texture, and it's really adaptable for other patterns. That's how I've used it for a blanket, a dishcloth and a scarf so far. So yes, my dishcloths are of course made from 100% cotton yarn, which means that they're reusable, they're eco-friendly, and they are easy to wash. I started making these actually in the heat wave during the summer because it was too warm to use any sort of the woollier and chunkier fibres. It was just far too warm, and cotton is just so light and cool to use, so it was the ideal little craft. And plus I just had so much cotton yarn in my stash that I just had to get through some of it. I've used it in the past for things like coasters and face scrubbies, but I just had so much that I thought I'll go a bit bigger and I will make some dishcloths. Again, they work up super quickly, and cotton yarn is so affordable, so I don't have to sell it for a lot at all, just a few pounds. I think that, along with the fact that they're reusable and eco-friendly, makes them really popular. Plus some of the colours are just really joyful and lovely, which again makes them quite appealing. They also make great gifts for people. I mostly use paint box yarns in cotton Aran weight. I use a 5mm hook for that, which this yarn comes from. They've got some lovely colours, really big range. But I have also used some of the Lily Sugar and Cream yarn, which you can normally get at Hobbycraft or The Range or online on places like Lovecrafts and Wool Warehouse. Really easy to get and again affordable. I still use a 5mm hook for that. Jack described this colour as eggy. So that is what the colour is named on my Etsy shop. And another yarn I have used, which again I found in the range, is this Devant 100% cotton yarn, which, how fabulous are the colours for that. Devant is the range's own brand of yarn, and again super affordable, and I really quite like it. So yeah, Beautiful colours. I won't talk you through the entire inventory of my craft fairs, but I thought I would show you one more thing that I've been working on for the past few weeks to stock up. That is my scarf design. So here is one example. I will give you a close-up of that texture. There you go. So I do take these to summer fairs, but I generally only sell the odd one because it, of course, just isn't the season. Whereas now with these autumn craft fairs, they've started doing really well, so I am frantically making more. They only take a few hours to make as well. They are made from either Chonky yarn or Aran yarn, and I just generally use whichever hook is appropriate, so it generally tends to be a 6mm up or upwards, so it really does work up quickly. I won't actually tell you about the pattern in full detail because it is a pattern that I might sell eventually. If that's something you'd be interested in, do tell me. But yes, again, this is what it looks like. Generally made from a lot of double crochet or treble crochet if you use UK terms. Lots of those sort of stitches, but it's a brilliant texture. I'd describe it as quite a squishy texture it creates, and it is really warm and lovely. So this particular tweedy yarn I've used in other colours. I've used in navy, grey and cream as well, and it's actually the same yarn I used for pumpkins, which I showed you last week. And it is the King Cole Chunky Tweed. Yes, it's a wool acrylic blend and the colours are just beautiful and perfect for autumn. I really, really like them. And there we go. I tend to use about 2 skeins for the scarf. For the people who prefer something a bit brighter to the autumnal tones, I also make these scarves. So it is the same pattern, although this one's a bit wider, but in a rather brighter yarn. This yarn is honestly such a joy to work with, partly because of the colours, but also, again, it's a wool acrylic blend, but it does just have a lovely feel. It feels a bit more woolly and it's really warm. It's just lovely. I know that the brand is Knit and Purl and that you can find it in places like Aldi in the middle section, if you know what I'm talking about. And I can't remember the exact name of it, but it comes in a ginormous 200g cake and it is quite affordable. So yeah, 1 skein is enough for a big long scarf and they are just absolutely brilliant. I was actually gifted one of these skeins for Christmas last year, and I think I'd made up one of the scarves by the end of the day, or maybe Boxing Day. It was very quick. I enjoyed it so much. Is that actually a bit sad? Maybe I shouldn't have said that. So yes, there are obviously a lot more different items on my craft stores, like hats and things like that, and other amigurumi, and I can talk about that another time if you'd like, but I thought I'd just give you a little tour of some of my regular makes. So I'll move on to whips, but I'm afraid, again, there's not much to show because I have been putting all of my focus into the craft fair making. But one whip that has actually had some progress made is the big stripy blanket. So just a quick reminder that I am making this big blanket out of Studio Donegal soft Donegal yarn, which I got from Yak in Brighton. And last time we spoke in episode 2, I had absolutely no progress on the blanket to show, but I assure you, the blanket mojo has returned. I think that might be because of the cooler weather and it's something to keep me warm and crochet at the same time. But yes, since episode 1 when we last talked about it, I hadn't even finished the burgundy colour, the red. I was maybe about a third of the way through that, but since then we have finished the burgundy and we've had not 1 but 2 colour changes. So here's where I'm up to. Oh, I don't know how much you could see, but in terms of what I've done, yes, I was up to maybe here-ish and I've done all of this. The thing is with this blanket is that, yes, it is a lot of stitches, but once I get started on it and I really get in the mood for it, I just absolutely fly through the rows. So actually I only did all of this in a couple of evenings. To be honest, it was actually a really nice way to wind down after a day of just furious pumpkin making for craft fairs. I'm really not sure what I want to call the blanket. I know you don't have to name your projects, but I feel like I'd quite like some sort of name to refer to it. I'm not sure if autumn stripe blanket is just a bit boring. I think Studio Donegal blanket just sounds a bit naff. I did think of Bake Off blanket because what I always said is that I wanted it either done or something that was the sort of size to work on and cover me up while I watched Bake Off when autumn came. But I don't know if Bake Off blanket suits it, just because the Bake Off aesthetic is sort of quite, it's all light blues and it's really quite summery, and that's really not the vibe of this blanket apart from the one strip. So yeah, if anybody has any suggestions on like a name for the blanket, I'd love to hear them. And maybe by the next episode it'll be finished with a name. I'm so happy with it, so happy. It is nearly finished and it's going to keep me warm because this is clearly going to be a very cold winter. So the only other crafty sort of thing I've been up to since the last episode is that I've been doing some organising. And the reason I wanted to do that is because, like I said, for things like squiddies, I use a lot of scrappy yarn. So I wanted to separate out what would only be used as scrappy yarn and what would only be used for that sort of thing. So I did that and I put it all in a drawer. And as I worked through the drawer, I realised there was a lot that wasn't even big enough to make a squiddy with. So I was trying to think of a solution for the use of this yarn. I really don't like waste. So it is sat in this drawer, and some of it even in a scrappy jar of really small bits. And I've had a few ideas of what to do with it before. I've thought of a scrappy hat or a scrappy scarf, but a lot of it is just, it's all different sizes, it's all different colours, and it'd be really hideous. And I'm just thinking, would I actually wear that? Probably not. And that's just, you know, that's just going to sit in a drawer forever. What's the point? So, from watching some other podcasters, I have actually had a bit of inspiration and I have decided what to do with it. The plan is to essentially make the biggest, ugliest, scrappiest blanket. Big granny blanket. And the reason for that is that I would still use it even though it would be hideous. You know, I'm not going to go out in a hideous scarf, but a hideous blanket can stay in a drawer and it can stay in a cupboard when it's not being used, and when it is being used, all I need it to be is cosy. And I think it would actually really make me quite happy to see all that scrap yarn being used and not going off to landfill. And in some ways it'll be hideous, but it will be bright, it will be random, and I kind of love the idea of it. So part of my inspiration comes from Ali at Little Drops of Wonderful, who I believe has done something similar where she's gotten all of her scrappy bits, like things that are, you know, just a strand even, and she has made she has started making a granny blanket with it. I think it might be a granny stripe she's done, and her scraps are of every weight and every size, and I think from DK up maybe. And yes, I did just think it was a genius way of using up those scrap bits that would otherwise just sit in a drawer or go off to landfill. The only thing I wouldn't do, she has done it so she will be weaving in all the ends, and with how many scrappy bits I'd be using, I just personally can't think of anything worse. I know a lot of people don't mind sewing in ends, but I do. That would drive me insane. So I sort of put off the idea, but still had it in the back of my mind. And then I saw on Sherry's podcast, who is the wonderful Ollie and Bella, she had put together, I think, either mini skeins or again scraps, and she had put them into a magic knot ball, which, if you don't know, is where you tie the bits of yarn together and it creates pretty much an invisible sort of knot so that it all becomes one skein, which I just think is utter genius. And I'd heard of one before, but I'd sort of forgotten about the idea and just hadn't even thought of it. And yeah, I saw it on Sherry's podcast and just thought it was the most genius solution. So one evening last week, Jack and I sat and made rather a lot of magic knot balls out of my scrappy yarn, and we put them into 100-gram skeins, and I think they're about 8. And don't get me wrong, they are hideous. Like, this is going to be a crazy blanket. But I kind of just love it. So here's an example. Nothing wrong with the blue. The green's not so bad with it. And then under that you can see purple, there's probably red in there. You've got all sorts of weights, you've got all sorts of fibres. But I'm so excited about this. So yeah, we've got a bag here of magic knot ball skeins. So thank you to Jack for your patience and for helping me with that. He was actually really excited about doing it, and he actually did most of the tying. So yes, I'm super excited. So thank you to Ali and Sherry for inspiring me to do that and helping me find a solution for my scrappy bits of yarn, because there were so many. So after that long-winded explanation and ramble about my magic knot balls, I think it's time to get on to some happy post. Also, just for the record, I am still sat with the blanket over me. I'm very snug. So yes, acquisitions. You know what it is? Yes, it's only been 2 weeks since the last podcast, so realistically I shouldn't really have much to show. But my excuse this time is that I have had to struggle through the difficult time of seeing podcasters vlogging and Instagram stories and Instagram posts of everybody at Unravel Festival, Perth Festival of Yarn. There was Yarndale. Not only has that introduced me to a whole load of new hand dyers and independent brands with gorgeous yarns, but it has also left me with the most serious case of yarn envy. So I was doing well on the yarn ban, but to partially cure my case of yarn envy, I'm afraid I had to cave. It went well for a short while. So part of the problem with the 2 shops I bought from was also that they had sales on, as well as having beautiful yarns. So I mean, it made me feel a bit less guilty about it. Anyway, let's just show you. So the first little order I made was from the wonderful Border Mill Yarns, which is a company based in Scotland. I discovered them amongst the many Instagram stories and posts about Perth Festival of Yarn. So as I say, everything that I got in this little order was at a reduced price, and it was all in their summer sale, which I believe some of which is still going on. So if you like what you see, head on over to their shop. I'll leave the link below, and maybe you'll be able to still grab yourself some goodies. So I'm going to start off with this beauty because I've just got 2 skeins of this one. This is their alpaca mohair DK yarn. So DK weight, it is a 50-50 blend of alpaca and mohair. It is a 100-gram skein. I'm afraid I can't remember the exact name of the colour, but it is a sort of coral colour. It's a reddy pinky sort of vibe, I'd say, and it really is just as soft as it sounds. It is beautiful. So I got 2 skeins of that, and I'm really chuffed. Yeah. And then the rest of the order was all from the alpaca tweed range, which just had the most beautiful colours. I wanted more than I got, so I think I was quite controlled considering how much I wanted. I will show you this colour first because this is very similar to the last skein I just showed. So this is the alpaca tweed in chili pepper, and it is a very similar coral sort of colour, but you have these sort of yellow and greeny sort of specks in there, and I just think that they look great. So this is 100% British alpaca in a worsted weight. The label says soft and silky, pure British alpaca spun in the beautiful Scottish borders. Ugh, it is just gorgeous. So I actually got 4 skeins of each of these alpaca tweed colours, but that's because I'm sort of envisioning some jumpers and cardigans, and yes. I also think the labels are really nice. I just think they're really cute designs. So yes, that's chili pepper. We've got another reddish colour, but very different, I'd say. Dark reds, burgundies, really just, again, it is as soft as it sounds. 100-gram skeins. Oh, this one's got a slightly different label. I think that's an alpaca with a paintbrush. Absolutely brilliant. This is a really cozy colour though. I think I can make something really festive with this. The colour name is Velvet. Very mulled wine vibes. So, and I've kept my favourite one for last. And I think it's partly because of the name and partly because of everything else about it. So the name of this one is Biscuit, and I'm so weak for biscuits. I'm not bad with chocolate, but biscuits every time. So anyway, oh, just a mix of lovely beigey brown shades. Another different label actually, but just so soft, and I can just see this becoming the most beautiful jumper or cardigan. If anybody's got any patterns to recommend for worsted weight cardies or jumpers, I quite like sort of more crop fits, slouchy fits. Please feel free to recommend some, because that'd be amazing. So yes, that's my little haul from the Border Mill yarns, and I don't regret it at all. I absolutely love those yarns so much, and I'm so excited to use them. So the second order that I made was from another company that I discovered in the run of yarn festivals, and I saw, I think, on Instagram, and this was Cheshire Yarns, and it's a very different vibe from the last order, but still very me. I suppose I've got different styles, and it's an unintentionally very pink order. So you'll see what I mean. Again, everything in this order was reduced, it was in a sale. They may still have some items on sale, so maybe check them out. I'll put the link below again. And I think what drew me to this shop and made me cave, it was not only the beautiful colours, but the range of yarn weights, because I'll have said this before, it is hard to find hand-dyed yarn in heavier weights. It just is. They're much more common in 4-ply for socks, and quite a bit more common in DK, but as the yarn weights get bigger, it is much harder to find nice hand-dyed yarn, and they just had the most amazing range. I think I'll work from chunkiest backwards. So this is a chunky weight yarn in 100% superwash merino. It's in 100 grams skein in the colour Candy Carousel. And I think that is brilliant. I got 3 skeins of that. You've got orange tones, pink tones, little bits of purple, and then you've got some sort of darker splodges, like inky splodges. I think that's amazing, and it's really hard to find chunky hand-dyed yarn, so Chonky Stitches is very happy. I got 3 skeins, I think I already said that. Chuffed. So the second one was an Aran weight, and again superwash merino 100% and 100 grams, and this is it. So still in the unintentional pink theme, but this one's, you know, this one's more brown. We've got dark browns, a sort of light brown base, but lots of pink and purple in there too. Really bright pink there. Dark, deep purple. There you go. And that colourway is Flowering Chestnut, which it does really suit. It's a really good name for that particular yarn. So 2 skeins of that. Very happy. Next one, we go down to DK weight. So this is actually 115 grams. The colourway is Lupin, and again 100% superwash merino. Still in the pink theme, but again very different. So it's a lighter pink, and then you've got totally rainbow specks. So you've got blue, you've got green, yellow. I think that's so cute. So cute, and it's so soft. And 2 skeins of that as well. Really happy. And I like the name because I'm quite a Harry Potter fan. The final skein I got was just 1 skein, And I got this because I talked, I think in episode 2, about a DK blanket I'm thinking of doing with my one-off skeins of hand-dyed yarn that I've sort of collected, and I think this can go into that. So this one is, as I say, DK, and it is again pink, but I'd say it's got sort of sunsetty colours with the orange in there, but also a bit of blue. So yeah, definitely sunsetty vibe, I'd say. And this one's actually 100% superwash BFL wool, which feels just lovely. Feels really, really nice, and I think that'll make some really nice squares in this blanket. It smells really woolly. I'm not the only one who smells my wool, am I? I know Jack does. So yes, just one skein, and that's going to go into the blanket. So yes, they are the 2 orders I made, and I think they'll nicely top up my stash. I don't think 2 orders is that bad, right? It's not that bad. Anyway, that actually doesn't conclude my acquisition section, and that is because my lovely partner, who is Jack from Slipslipginge, the podcast on YouTube, I will leave his links below, he has treated me to a few lovely gifts. So firstly, he's made something for me. And I did know about this, it wasn't a surprise, but he's made me a Ravenclaw scarf. Oh, it is so cool. Oh, I didn't put that on well, did I? That's okay. I put that on really badly, don't mind me. So, I actually gifted Jack the yarn to make this. I had 4 skeins in the blue and grey, can't remember the exact colours, and it is West Yorkshire Spinners Retreat yarn, which is a chunky weight, and it is 100% wool, and honestly it is the squishiest thing ever. The halo is great. Oh wow. It just made the perfect scarf. We actually blocked it together last week, and there should be enough for him to make a second scarf for himself because he is also a Ravenclaw. So, I'm gonna have matching scarves. Cringe. Head on over to his channel if you want to hear about how he made it, because he's a knitter. This is a knitted scarf and I can't really tell you a thing. So yes, thank you again, Jack. I absolutely love it. It's so warm, so squishy, and just exactly what I wanted. And not only did Jack make me a scarf, he also gifted me some very nice yarn. So as I just mentioned, I am planning on a DK granny square blanket, and I also mentioned that in the last podcast. And I've got a few skeins saved up for that I've collected, nice hand-dyed ones. But yes, he bought me something to go into that. So this is it. Isn't it just beautiful? Just the most gorgeous shades of green. Green is one of my favourite colours, if you didn't know. So this is from Yarnside, which I believe is a shop on Etsy. It's in the colour Eve's Wood. It is obviously DK weight, and it is 100% Blueface Leicester wool. 50 gram skein, and it is really just going to go into that blanket so well. So happy. It also came with a really nice stitch marker, which I will retrieve from my Emma Ball tin. So this is the stitch marker that it came with. Which is really cute, and it goes with the Ravenclaw theme, doesn't it? So even better. So thank you, Jack, for that. I love it so much. So then the second skein he got me was this one, which comes again with a stitch marker, that little dragonfly. How cute. And these colours are just so me. They are incredible. They, as I said, green is one of my favourite colours, and actually the other one is purple. So this yarn is just, it is me in a skein. This is by Dye and Knit by Kate, another Etsy shop, and the treasure width the Treasure-way, that's because the colourway is Mystical Treasure. That's why I said Treasure-way. Anyway, it is 75/25 superwash merino and nylon, 50 grams again, and this is a 4-ply yarn. And the reason for that leads me on to something else. I am planning on this DK granny blanket, but I actually realised I do have a few skeins of 4-ply yarn, and I generally don't work with that much because I just tend to work with chunkier weights. So I was thinking about what I could do with it, and I didn't have very much, but because it is so common in hand-dyed yarn, I have decided I'm going to try and make a blanket with it. And I know what you're thinking, that's going to take forever, but the plan is to hold it double, and I've found the yarn I'm going to hold it double with, but I'm not going to talk about that now. So last week, Jack and I went to Glasgow. We went to Glasgow for another reason, but we went and visited a shop called The Yarn Cake, which was just the most amazing place. But on our adventure to Glasgow and to the yarn shop, we decided to vlog that, and this leads me to the announcement. We are going to be setting up a joint vlog channel for our yarny and just general adventures. So I will hopefully be able to leave the link for that below, or maybe even on the screen. And yes, so that is an exciting new venture for me and Jack. So the vlog is going to be called Our Little Universe, EWE. Hopefully the vlog for Glasgow will be up soon. So that's a bit of a tangent, but also an important announcement. And part of how that links in is at the Yarn Cake I did find some gorgeous hand-dyed yarn, but it was all in 4-ply and I couldn't resist, of course. So I got some skeins towards that, which will go into this blanket. And to hear me talk properly about that, you'll need to go and watch the vlog and see what I got. So yes, that is everything that I needed to talk about and wanted to talk about this week. Thank you very much for watching my podcast, and I really hope you enjoyed it. I'm sorry there wasn't much to show on the personal project side, but I hope you enjoyed seeing some of the craft fair items I make. Please do subscribe to the other channel if you're interested in seeing our adventure to the yarn shop, and if you're interested in looking out for some of the other things we have coming up. Thank you again for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.